everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is the Science Dispatch podcast from the American Council on Science and Health. I am your host, Cameron English, joined as always by Dr. Chuck Dinnerstein, Director of Medicine at the American Council on Science and Health. So glad to be with you again. Chuck, how's it going?
It's going really well. I'm having a beautiful day.
I'm glad to hear it. It's a beautiful fall day. I hope that's true where you are. The leaves are falling. The weather is cool. And Christmas is right around the corner. I dig it. It's a beautiful time of year. But we've got a story to discuss. And again, as many of your stories are, it's quietly interesting. It's not like an explosive topic that's in the headlines. But nevertheless, I think you're getting at a really important issue here. So this is called, does the USDA's one-size-fits-all TFP diet fall short? So let me read the intro here. And then take it away and explain the details of this. So you write, ever wonder how the USDA thinks you should eat on a budget? Meet the Thrifty food plan, the TFP, a bland one-size-fits-all diet optimized for nutrition on a dime. But for food, we have a great many culturally appetizing choices. A new study in nutrients takes aim at that oversight, proposing a Hispanic Thrifty food plan that's more pork and less tofu. Okay. Right off the bat, there's just so many ways this could go south, no pun intended.
Oh my God. I can see how this whole episode is going to go already.
Chuck's going to be famous, but not for reasons that he wants.
Not for a good reason. There you go.
In all seriousness, this is an important topic because there are many people in this country who live on a very, very tight budget. And of course, feeding themselves, feeding their children a nutritious diet is a challenge. You know, it's not just a matter of figuring out what you should eat, but, you know, how do you pay for it as well? So I can appreciate why these guidelines are here. I can appreciate why there are researchers talking about it. But take it away. What did you take away from this paper?
Okay, so I have to tell you that the origin of the story goes to something else. I saw in the news feeds a lot of consternation going back and forth about the soon-to-be announced nutritional guidelines from the USDA. And having been writing about nutrition for the last several years and knowing that on a good day, maybe half the people follow the guidelines, sort of, I was trying to understand why anybody would really care what the guidelines say. We don't follow them. Turns out that the guidelines then are incorporated into the USDA's Thrifty food plan. And the important thing about the Thrifty food plan is that that's used to determine SNAP benefits. And that sets the stage for how much money is available to provide food for people in need. And that control of what foods are available and how much money is available is really what's driving all of these things. So that having been said, the Thrifty food plan is in fact, as you said, a way to figure out maximal nutrition on the best price. The critics have argued that while it meets our nutritional needs, it doesn't necessarily meet our culinary needs because the foods that we grow up with, our comfort foods, are more inclined to be the ones that we will choose. So if we can find healthy comfort foods for our particular ethnic and cultural background, that would be better. So in order to do a kind of proof of concept, the researchers attempted to develop a Thrifty food plan for a Hispanic population. They chose a Hispanic population because at this point they represent about 20% of the United States. They're a very large growing demographic. And so what they did is they went out and they looked and they gathered data on what the foods were that Hispanic families might eat. And then they developed a diet that would go around it. And they demonstrated that in some ways they could develop such a diet, but they had to make some exceptions. And in this case, they had to bring in pork because that was a very common meat element in the Hispanic diet. And they used that to replace beef. So they could make cultural substitutions. In the end, they did develop some diets that were worthwhile. And I think that it's not a bad idea if we did that across the board. There are problems with the study, like there are with any study. So I'll say the biggest one, of course, was they didn't actually have any full data on what any individual family was eating, and more importantly, Hispanic is as precise a term today as Asian, and there are any number of countries in Central America and South America. They all have different cultures. They all share some similarities. They all have differences. So to lump everybody together as Hispanic is really no different than lumping the Chinese, the Japanese, the Thais, and the Indians together as Asians. So there's where we be.
There's an interesting point in that, in how we talk about different groups of people, right? Because if they would never do this, but if they were to put out an Asian friendly dietary guidelines, everyone would say, "What's wrong with you guys?" There's no such thing, in terms of dietary significance.
It's in China. There are 5 wholly different ethnic diets. One region of the country is wheat-based. I mean, all those dumplings and doughs and all those things, and another one is what we would think of as more traditional rice-based. So even within a country, you can't make those statements.
Why? And I didn't look up the statistics or anything that would clarify this, but why this group of people? However you end up defining it. Why Hispanics? Are they the greatest recipient of SNAP or food stamp benefits?
No, I don't think that that's the case. I think that it was really chosen primarily because they represent the second largest demographic group in the country at this point. It's whites or Caucasians. I'm not sure what the correct term is for me anymore. I'm not really that. I don't even know what I am anymore. And followed by Hispanics, and so I think that they chose what we would term a convenience sample, where they could make a reasonable case. I see you making that face over there.
I'm trying not to. It's just such a sensitive topic, not because of anything we've said, but it's just you bring up anything related to race or ethnicity, and people put the eggshells down themselves and start to walk on them. You mentioned up top that a lot of people don't even pay attention to these.
No.
So I'm wondering to what extent this is actually going to benefit the public health in any way, or is this just sort of we arranged the chairs so we can say we did something, sort of exercise?
As it stands at the moment, it is rearranging the deck chairs at the USDA. On the other hand, if they were to begin to follow the idea of precision food the way they would like to follow the idea of precision medicine, then certainly it might make sense to begin to tailor your SNAP benefits to reflect your ethnic and cultural culinary interests. And it probably would not be difficult to do on a statistical basis to come up with 5 or 6 different additional diets that could be applied to SNAP benefits that would allow people to get products that were more aligned with what they wanted to eat. I think that if we can, when you can identify food that people love that's nutritional, that's a win-win. When you can identify food that's nutritional that they don't want to eat because it's just not in their culinary vocabulary, then it's not going to work. And we already, as I said, we're already behind the 8 ball when only half of the country sort of follows the guidelines, up until they get to the golden arches.
Which is where all the good stuff is, mind you, right? That's the problem. I think everyone likes McDonald's French fries, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yes.
And no, I was not paid to say that. If anyone is curious,
You were
right?
you were paid. You were paid by big seed oil.
Yes. I wish, right? I have a 2003 Lexus. I wish Big Seed Oil would hook me up with something a little more modern.
I know.
Okay. So I guess on an ending note, to be a little less cynical, it's good, right? If you can try to match people's dietary preferences with foods that are good for them, all the better, right?
Yes.
If you can make good
Personalized
choices,
nutrition.
palatable. Yeah. Very good, right? Personalized medicine, nutrition, entertainment,
See now,
books.
and the problem is that personalized doesn't scale. It requires individual effort, and we seem to be getting away from the idea of individualizing the effort.
There's a really insightful point there, Dr. Dinnerstein. Thank you for bringing that up, right? When you have giant bureaucracies, they can't respond in the way that they need to make people healthy on a per capita basis.
Well, they can, but it's a great deal more work than
That's right. Yeah, if you lock people in a hospital ward and regulate every calorie they bring in, you can make them healthy.
feed the algorithm, and it'll take care of the problem.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Grok is going to spit out our new nutritional recommendations moving forward. Okay. Well, let's leave it there, and I'm glad we solved yet another problem. Every week we're just knocking these out, these grand societal problems that Chuck and I are handling it. So everyone else, take the week off. Thank you for joining us as always. You can follow us on social media. It's at ACSH.org on X, and I am at CamJEnglish. Go to our website, acsh.org. Subscribe tab is up top. Punch in your email address. We'll send you the stories that we publish. The ones that you read are the ones that we talk about. Thank you as always. We'll see you next time.